Welcome children. Today we are going to continue with the fourth chapter of history for standard 7th, the Mughal Empire, and this is part 2 of my video. Now Babur ruled from 1526 to 1530. He ruled only for 4 years and you can see the extent of his empire. He was ruler of Kabul and Kandahar. Then when he came to Indian subcontinent, he conquered Punjab, Delhi, Agra and Malwa. So all the green part that you see was the extent of his empire. But he could not consolidate his empire properly and he died at an early age. He could rule only for 4 years and in 1530 he died. Babur died in 1530. Babur had 4 sons and on his deathbed he advised his eldest son Humayun to look after his brothers. Now after Babur's death, the question arose, who would be the next king? Now the Mughals followed a different kind of succession. Now they did not believe in the system of primogeniture. When a king died, normally the system was that the eldest son would take over the reins of the kingdom. He would become the next king. Okay, so after the king dies, the eldest son would become the king, and this system was called as primogeniture. Now the Mughals did not believe in this kind of a system. They believed in a different kind of a system. Now the Mughals believed in a different system. As I told you, they believed in a co-parcenary system. Now what was this system? That every son of the emperor had the right to inherit his property. So you can see Babur had 4 sons and his entire territory was divided into 4 parts. Okay, so it was not that the eldest son would get the entire kingdom. It was equally divided among his children. So in this case, Babur had 4 sons and so his entire kingdom was equally divided into 4 parts. Now the problem with this co-parcenary system was that when the king died and he divided his kingdom among his children, now what would happen? Yes, they would all fight for the throne, and whoever was more powerful and able would defeat all his brothers and declare himself as the emperor or the sultan. And this is what happened in most of the Mughal successions. Now this is what Babur also did. He followed the co-parcenary system, and Humayun being the eldest, yes, he got some shares of his territory. Then Kamran, Askari, Hindal. Hindal was the youngest son. So Babur had 4 sons and he equally divided the kingdom amongst his 4 sons. Now Humayun got Delhi and Agra once the kingdom was divided. Kamran was given Kabul and Kandahar. Hindal was given Alwar and Askari was given Sambhal. Now Humayun being the eldest and the most ablest son, he then declared himself as the emperor of the Mughal Empire. Now this act of Humayun was not liked by his brothers. They constantly conspired against him, wanted to kill him and made his rule difficult. Now Babur had acquired a lot of wealth and his treasury was full, but he did not know how to run the empire. So he gave away lots of his wealth to his nobles and other generals. So when Humayun ascended the throne, he was only 23 years old. He was an inexperienced ruler, and to top it off, when he got the throne, he found that there was nothing left in the treasury. The treasury was empty. Now apart from the treasury being empty and being bankrupt, Humayun faced a number of other troubles. Okay, he had to face 2 more enemies. One was from Gujarat, Bahadur Shah, and the other from Bihar, Sher Shah Suri. Now that Babur was out of the picture, Bahadur Shah thought it was the right time to attack and occupy Delhi and Agra. He got his troops ready to attack Humayun. But Humayun was very smart and he acted quickly. He quickly captured the 2 forts that were there in Gujarat, Mandu and Champaner. Now, seeing this, Bahadur Shah now lost all the confidence in his army, and he began to retreat and took refuge with the Portuguese. Okay, and he remained there as a refugee till he died in 1537. Now, children, by 1537, we see in Bihar, Sher Shah Suri, another person, was becoming ready, building his army, and becoming more and more powerful, and getting ready to fight Humayun. Okay, and 2 years later, he engaged in a conflict with Humayun at a place called Chausa. This was called Battle of Chausa. Now, the Battle of Chausa was a brutal defeat for Humayun. 8,000 Mughal soldiers died in this battle, and Humayun had to flee the battlefield in order to protect his soldiers. Sher Shah Suri kept attacking the Mughal army and forced Humayun to move more westwards. Okay, and finally, now Humayun thought of fighting a battle with Sher Shah Suri, and this led to the Battle of Kannauj in 1540. But since the Mughal army was already weak since the first attack at Chausa, Sher Shah Suri now occupied Agra and Delhi, and Humayun had left no option but to flee from the Indian subcontinent. Now, after the defeat of Humayun at the Battle of Kannauj, he had no option left but to flee from the Indian subcontinent. So you can see he left Delhi, went to Lahore, and then he went to Sindh. But he could not stay in Sindh for longer because his brother Kamran was posing a lot of problems for him. Now, when he was at Sindh, he had a son called Akbar. Now, after the birth of his son Akbar, Humayun had to flee from Sindh, taking the route from Kabul, and he went up to Persia, which is Iran, and there he was welcomed by Shah Tamash of the Safavid dynasty. And this Shah Tamash helped Humayun to build his own army so that he could again attack and get back the territories that he had lost to Sher Shah Suri. Okay, so there he stayed in Persia for 15 years. So 15 years he was just roaming around here and there, and finally he got refuge with Shah Tamash of the Safavid dynasty, where he was able to build his army. So as I mentioned earlier, that with the help of Shah Tamash, Humayun was able to build his army, and in 1555 he again came to India, and first he defeated his brother and conquered Kabul, and then he moved further to Delhi and Agra. Now in the same year, in 1555, with the same army, he moved ahead. By the time Sher Shah Suri had died and his successors were weak, so he was able to conquer Delhi and Agra. So by 1555, he managed to get back the territories that he had lost to Sher Shah Suri. So we say, children, in 1555, Humayun recaptures all his lost territories. Okay, but he could rule only for 1 year till 1556, when he accidentally fell down from the steps of his library and died. So we can see Humayun's rule was ruled in two phases. In the first phase, after the death of Babur in 1530, he becomes the emperor of the Mughal Empire, and he rules for 10 years from 1530 to 1540, and then he is defeated by Sher Shah Suri, and he roams around in the jungles for 15 years. Finally he gets refuge with Shah Tamash, the ruler of Persia, who helps him to build his army and recapture his lost territories. So in 1555 he recaptures all his territories, but he is not able to enjoy that, and he ruled only for 1 year, and he died in 1556. Now, due to the accidental death of Humayun, the throne was now handed over to Akbar, the son of Humayun, who was only 13 years old, and he becomes the youngest emperor of the Mughal Empire. So with this we end the second part of this chapter on Mughal Empire. I'll be soon back with my third video where we will talk about Akbar, the next Mughal emperor. Till then, do view and subscribe. Thank you.